Most people know Nvidia these days as the company that's powering the world's artificial intelligence boom. Its chips are the backbone of AI systems, and the company recently became the world's most valuable public firm, hitting $4 trillion in market value. At the center of all of this is Nvidia's CEO, Jensen Huang. Huang was born in southern Taiwan, moved to the US at age 9, and co-founded Nvidia in 1993. For a long time, the company was mainly known among gamers and hardware insiders, but the recent AI wave pushed Nvidia and Huang into the realm of global celebrities. Nowhere is Huang more of a celebrity than in Taiwan. There he enjoys a level of fame known as Jensanity, not to be confused with Linsanity. Crowds chase him for autographs on everything from graphics cards to even this one girl's chest.
Is that a good idea? Are we gonna have this?
And this kid even dressed up as him for Halloween. In his 2024 Jensanity-inciting visit to Taiwan, Jensen Huang strolled through night markets with TSMC founder Morris Chang. He spoke to vendors in Taiwanese Hokkien, which is a language deeply intertwined with Taiwanese identity. And in an interview with the press, he called Taiwan a country.
Taiwan is one of the most important countries in the world. It is at the center of the electronics industry. The computer industry is built because of Taiwan. And so, very, very important country.
The word country is highly controversial in the context of Taiwan's geopolitics, where Taiwan operates as a self-governing democracy, but Beijing refuses to recognize Taiwan as a separate country. So Huang's statement electrified Jensanity fans in Taiwan, who interpreted this statement as their favorite CEO demonstrating support for Taiwan and connecting to his Taiwanese roots. Across the Taiwan Strait, however, the response was somewhat less enthusiastic. The Chinese media blasted Huang for his statement, accusing him of getting carried away and letting his fame get the better of him. Commentators warned that Chinese companies would not want to work with him if he supported what was, in their interpretation, equivalent to Taiwan independence. Caught in a geopolitical crossfire, with his business relations in China at risk, Huang quickly walked back his remarks and said that he had never meant to make a geopolitical statement, but had just wanted to thank his partners in Taiwan. Okay, fast forward to July 2025, when Jensen Huang attended the International Supply Chain Expo in Beijing, this time swapping his signature leather jacket for a Tang Dynasty-style suit. The visit conveniently coincided with Nvidia reaching that $4 trillion market value milestone, and with the US government approving Nvidia's H20 chips for sale in China. So CEO Huang leaned into the hype. In what was labeled as a charm offensive, he praised Chinese AI models like DeepSeek, lauded even Nvidia's rival, Huawei, and for the first time gave a public speech in Mandarin.
This will be my first time that I deliver a speech in Chinese. I grew up in the United States and I learned Chinese along the way. And so, 我现在很紧张 very nervous. 很高兴这次来到中国，这是我第一次参加联博会，这里的规模非常大，气氛也很热烈。
But in my opinion, the most interesting thing that happened on Huang's trip to Beijing is a press interview in which he said that he's Chinese.
I'm Chinese, but I grew up in America. My first language is Chinese, but I stopped using it since I was 5. And so I had to learn it along the way.
Just a year prior, Jensen Huang had been strolling through night markets in Taiwan, speaking Taiwanese Hokkien and calling Taiwan a country. Then suddenly, he's wearing a Tang Dynasty-style suit, giving speeches in Mandarin and calling himself Chinese. So apparently Jensen Huang is Chinese now, but that wasn't always the case. In this video, we're going to unpack how Taiwan's homegrown chip hero shifts his identity to pull off a balancing act that almost no one else in the US, China, Taiwan tech triangle can manage, and how this drops him right into the middle of the messy, high-stakes question of what it really means to be Taiwanese. Hi friends, I'm Sarah Plavnik, a researcher who has spent 8 years studying Taiwan's media and culture, and this is Taiwan Salad, a space where I answer all of the questions about Taiwan that you were too afraid to ask, such as, is Jensen Huang Chinese? All right, let's get started. Part 1. Taiwanese identity is trending. Jensen Huang is not the only one who has had to grapple with how to represent his Taiwanese roots to the public. But at the same time as Taiwan's favorite CEO is downplaying his Taiwanese roots, at least in China, elsewhere you could say that Taiwanese identity is trending.
A lot of people didn't know that I was half Taiwanese. For once, oh my gosh, Americans know where Taiwan is. For once, like our friend Leslie Liao. I said, you're Taiwanese? You said you were Chinese. She's like, I just found out.
Because she didn't know.
Now I'm like, okay, hold on. Now I'm gatekeeping. I'm like, okay, are you really Taiwanese though? Or is it cool now? It's cool now.
So in the comedy world, it's cool to be Taiwanese. And unlike CEO Huang, Atsuko wants us all to know that she was proudly Taiwanese even before it was trendy. Atsuko is actually a super interesting case because of her specific family history, which she discussed in an interview for this same Taiwanese podcast, Bilingual, about 2 years ago.
Part of the White Terror victims?
Yeah, so my grandma, she's been single since she was 28. Yeah, it's because my grandpa...
The White Terror victim?
Right, my great-grandpa. The party he was running for was whatever was against KMT at that time. I think to teach him a lesson, they killed his son, my grandpa. But they made it seem like it was a car accident. So when they brought his body back, my grandma already knew.
And your mom was 8 years old back then.
And she saw that. And so now when she hears voices in her head, the KMT is coming to get us. Even in America, the KMT is coming to get us.
In the interview, Atsuko shared that her grandfather was a victim of Taiwan's White Terror, a 40-year period of martial law beginning in 1949, in which the Kuomintang government cracked down on anyone suspected of opposing its rule, imprisoning, torturing, and executing thousands. The KMT government also imposed strict cultural controls, banning the use of local languages like Taiwanese Hokkien and Hakka in favor of Mandarin Chinese. Atsuko explained that her mother has struggled with this past trauma for her whole life, and Atsuko's family is not alone in this. Continuous struggles with this difficult past is common in Taiwan, where there has been increased attention in recent years to dealing with this collective trauma through transitional justice initiatives. Likely because of her specific family history, Atsuko is very clear that she's Taiwanese and not Chinese. We can glean from her interview that her family was in Taiwan generations before the KMT arrived in 1949, and that they're politically opposed to this nationalist Chinese regime. Atsuko's family falls into the category in Taiwan that's known as Benshengren, which literally translates as people from this province, but is typically just translated to Taiwanese. Benshengren refers to Han Chinese people that lived in Taiwan generations before the KMT arrived in 1949. Many of these families speak Taiwanese Hokkien since their ancestors came from Fujian province in China, where a similar version of Hokkien is spoken. Benshengren is used to distinguish this group of people from Waishengren, which translates as mainlanders, and refers to the group of people that came to Taiwan in 1949 with the KMT. Historically, people from Bensheng families would be more likely to identify as Taiwanese, and then people from Waisheng families would be more likely to identify as Chinese. Though even people from Bensheng families have religious or cultural roots in China, where their ancestors came from, and might still identify as ethnically or culturally Chinese. There is also an important distinction here, which is that the word Chinese has two translations in Mandarin. There's Zhongguoren, which means someone from China, and then there's Huaren, which translates more as ethnically Chinese. So people in Taiwan, when they're speaking Mandarin and they say they're Chinese, they're more likely to use the word Huaren, which would mean they're ethnically Chinese, and doesn't necessarily mean that they identify with China's current administration. Then with recent generations, the boundaries between Benshengren and Waishengren in Taiwan have blurred. Younger generations in Taiwan have never lived in China. Instead, they have grown up under Taiwan's self-ruled democratic government, and no one in Taiwan, aside from a few recent transplants, has ever lived under the CCP. While people in Taiwan, and especially older generations, may feel linguistically or culturally connected to their Chinese roots, it has become more common that people identify as Taiwanese, or even Taiwanese and Chinese, rather than just Chinese. Annual surveys by National Zhengzhou University show that only a tiny fraction, that's less than 3% of people in Taiwan, identify as only Chinese. Over 2/3 of people identify as Taiwanese only, and then the rest identify as both Taiwanese and Chinese. This is a dramatic change from the 1990s, when far more people embraced a Chinese or a dual identity. A Pew Research study showed that younger generations especially drive this shift. Among Taiwanese people under 35, over 80% identify as Taiwanese only. So there's our proof. Taiwanese identity is definitely trending, just like drinking matcha or shopping at thrift stores. At the same time, it's also controversial and politically charged. The Pew Research study showed that people who identify primarily as Taiwanese lean toward supporting the DPP political party, which tends to support Taiwan's distinct political status. On the other hand, those who identify as both Taiwanese and Chinese tend to support the KMT political party, which leans more toward closer ties with China. This is why for people with Taiwanese heritage, choosing an identity is so difficult. First of all, there are so many options. There's Taiwanese or Taiwanese third culture or Chinese third culture or Chinese and Taiwanese. And if this were only a statement about personal family history and heritage, that would already be complicated enough. But in this case, identity is not just personal, it's also political. And then this can be magnified for public figures.
Do you feel something for Taiwan? Do you feel a connection? Do you feel?
I do. I call it a country and stuff. So I won't perform in China, in that they won't ask me. So I don't perform there.
Even Hong Kong?
I performed in Hong Kong, but I consider Hong Kong, right?
As we heard from Atsuko, she even gave up the possibility of performing in China because she identifies so strongly as Taiwanese and has said before that Taiwan is a country. The politicization of Taiwanese-ness is why watching Jensen Huang's code switching is so fascinating. It's fascinating because CEO Huang's choice to wear a leather jacket or a Tang Dynasty-style suit is not just a personal decision or a fashion decision. It's also a reflection of US-China-Taiwan relations and a strategic marker of Nvidia's goals. And that's a lot of pressure to put on an outfit. Part 2. Jensen Huang's identity tightrope. Jensen Huang is a strategic business guy, and his strategy involves building and maintaining good relations with Taiwan and China and the US. He relies on Taiwan's TSMC to manufacture Nvidia's cutting-edge chips, and then he needs access to China's massive market to grow his company. And he also has to navigate US export controls and politics. And then, because Taiwanese identity is politicized, he has to tread carefully. He has to use his identity to his advantage without slipping up. He's walking an identity tightrope. And while so many others have face-planted off this tightrope before, Jensen Huang is doing backflips on it. Okay, so I'm going to attempt to analyze Jensen Huang's identity tightrope strategy. And it seems to me that a really important part of this identity tightrope strategy is that no one should be able to make any assumptions about what his true identity really is. I had a hard time finding information about Jensen Huang online aside from a basic narrative that was repeated across multiple sites, that he was born in Taiwan, moved with his family to Thailand at age 5, and then to the US at age 9. Now, I'm speculating a little bit here, but it seems to me like his PR team may have scraped the internet to carefully obscure anything about his family history. That is to say that I couldn't figure out when his parents' families arrived in Taiwan, which is to say that I couldn't figure out if his family is Bansheng or Waisheng, which means that I couldn't figure out if his family is more likely to identify as Taiwanese or Chinese. So he's keeping his family history and any associated identities ambiguous. Having said all of that, I'm going to make some assumptions about him anyway. These assumptions are based on his Jensanity inciting behavior in Taiwan when he spoke Taiwanese Hokkien at a night market and maybe accidentally called Taiwan a country.
Taiwan is one of the most important countries in the world.
Families that speak Taiwanese Hokkien are more likely to be Banshengren, meaning that they arrived in Taiwan generations before the 1949 KMT influx. And they're also more likely to call Taiwan a country, whether accidentally or on purpose. Crucially, Jensen Huang has used these subtle identity signals without ever outright stating that he's Taiwanese. And this has won him the favor of Taiwanese people who swarm him for autographs wherever he goes. When CEO Huang was filmed speaking Taiyu at a night market, there was a Taiwanese lawmaker who gushed on Facebook that seeing the, quote, $3 trillion man, at the time, speaking in his mother tongue made him feel proud. And all of this without too much backlash from the PRC. So this is how CEO Huang walks the Nvidia to Taiwan tightrope. But then there's the Nvidia to China tightrope. Here, Jensen plays up the Chinese aspects of his identity. He said in Beijing that he was Chinese even before he was American, signaling to his Chinese partners in Beijing that even more than his Taiwanese roots or his American life, he values the Chinese aspects of his identity, and significantly that his Taiwanese roots won't cause any geopolitical issues. Now, there's also an interesting time component here, which is that Jensen Huang shed his leather jacket for a Tang Dynasty-style suit immediately following Nvidia's H20 chips being approved for sale in China. I'm not a semiconductor expert, so for more information on this whole saga, you can check out the China Talk podcast episode as well as the Tech Taiwan article that are linked in the description below. But to provide a brief summary, based on what I understand from these two articles, Nvidia's H20 chips were designed as a workaround to export controls under the Biden administration. And these chips maxed out memory bandwidth so that Nvidia could sell the most advanced possible chips to China without going against Biden's export controls. And Biden never got around to banning these chips, but then the Trump administration banned them in April 2025. Leading up to this ban, and in a last-ditch effort to try to prevent it, Jensen Huang started hanging around Mar-a-Lago, including attending a $1 million a-head candlelit dinner. I can imagine, though, that if your company is valued at $4 trillion, $1 million a head might just feel like pocket change. So then 2 weeks after this dinner, the H20 chips were banned anyway, but Jensen didn't give up, and instead he found an ally within the Trump administration with the likes of David Sachs, who the New York Times calls a longtime Silicon Valley investor who became the White House's AI czar. By July, it seemed like Jensen's plan had started to work because the Trump administration's restrictions on chips had started to loosen. And by August, the H20 chips were officially approved for sale in China. And then Trump went on the record praising his buddy Jensen and saying that the H20 chips are actually obsolete, so we have nothing to worry about with selling them to China.
This is an old chip that China already has. And I deal with Jensen, who's a great guy, and Nvidia. The chip that we're talking about, the H20, it's an old chip. China already has it in a different form, different name. Now Jensen's a very brilliant guy, and Jensen also has a new chip, the Blackwell. Do you know what the Blackwell is? The Blackwell is super duper advanced.
But what I want to point out is the strategic timing of all of this. Starting in 2024, Jensen Huang hangs out with TSMC founder Morris Chang at night markets and calls Taiwan a country. And this is when Jensanity emerges in Taiwan. And then back in the US, he CUDA switches into a savvy businessman who knows how to negotiate with narcissistic businessman presidents by attending super expensive dinners in Mar-a-Lago. Then magically a few months later, Nvidia's H20 chips are approved for sale in China, and Trump really trusts his buddy Jensen. So CEO Huang is winning with his reputation in Taiwan, and he's on great terms with the US president, and then he sets his sights on China. And to win over Chinese hearts and minds, he plays up his Chinese identity. He speaks Mandarin and declares he's Chinese, and he compliments his rivals and talks about how important Chinese tech is. And with all of this, he pulls off the great balancing tightrope act of US-China-Taiwan business relations. Now, the last important point here is that he's doing all of this relatively subtly. We can imagine a less subtle option where Jensen Huang goes to Beijing and says the opposite, like, I was Taiwanese first and then I became Taiwanese American. Now, this might make Taiwanese people happy, but it would likely incite fury and outrage in Beijing. Alternatively, if he had gone too far in the other direction, for example, maybe stating that Taiwan was a province of China, that would have made Taiwanese people very angry. These strong political statements would have negatively impacted Nvidia's partnerships, supply chains, and stocks. But Nvidia's stocks have gone up and up and up, as Jensen Huang has continued to do backflips on his identity tightrope. Part 3. Bing chilling. It's especially interesting to watch Jensen Huang nail the Taiwan identity issue because so many celebrities have messed this up before. Like, for example, have you ever seen those videos of John Cena speaking Chinese?
早上好，中国！现在我有冰淇淋，我很喜欢冰淇淋，但是速度与激情就比冰淇淋速度与激情就我最喜欢。
Okay, we're all Bing chillin' now. Around the same time as John Cena's Bing chilling fame, while promoting Fast and Furious 9 in 2021, John Cena referred to Taiwan as a country during a TV interview, and Chinese social media was not happy. With 1.4 billion potential moviegoers at risk, John Cena quickly posted an apology video on Weibo.
你好，中国，这是焦西呢。我必须说，现在，在速度与激情中，我做很多采访，很多，所以在一个采访，我有一个错误，我必须说，现在就是很重要。我爱更尊重中国，更中国人。我很抱歉，对我的错误，对不起，我很抱歉。
But he still couldn't win. The American reaction to this apology was not great. And the Chinese reaction said that he didn't even go far enough since he never referred directly to Taiwan during the apology. And John Cena is not the only celebrity who has learned the hard way to be careful what he says about Taiwan. A few months ago, Oscar-winning actress Michelle Yeoh got caught in the crossfire when she said during a press interview event at Taipei 101 that she loves this country very, very much. Facing backlash from Chinese social media, Michelle Yeoh then edited the location of an Instagram post to say Taipei, China, which calmed the Chinese internet but angered fans in Taiwan. The pressure on Taiwanese celebrities can be even greater. Not only do they have to watch their language to avoid calling Taiwan a country, but they also may have to go out of their way to specifically clarify their allegiances. In 2024, the lead singer of one of Taiwan's most famous rock bands, Mayday, made his allegiances clear when he said during a concert in Beijing, "We Chinese, when we come to Beijing, we know we must eat Peking duck." This "We Chinese" statement came soon after Taiwan's president said that Taiwan is an independent country during his 2024 inauguration speech, which provoked anger in Beijing and put Taiwanese performers under pressure to prove their political correctness for their Chinese audiences. Chinese netizens and state media keep close tabs on Taiwanese performers and have even been known to keep spreadsheets of performers deemed insufficiently loyal so that they can organize boycotts. All of these incidents point toward the underlying issue that, in the eyes of China's government, any suggestion that Taiwan is a sovereign country is absolutely intolerable. Beijing exerts enormous pressure on Taiwanese businesses and public figures to stick with its official language and stance on Taiwan. Those who comply are rewarded with access to China's 1.4 billion consumer market, and those who don't are barred from it. We've seen Chinese regulators ban products, censor content, or cut ties with companies that, for example, list Taiwan as a country on their website. This was the case in 2018 when China's aviation authority ordered dozens of foreign airlines, including US carriers, to stop referring to Taiwan as a country on their websites. And faced with the threats of penalties, virtually all of the airlines complied. In this environment, where so many celebrities and public figures have had to make black and white statements about their allegiances toward Taiwan or toward China, Jensen Huang especially stands out. He demonstrates a rare level of subtlety in this space, where rather than making grandiose statements at public events, he uses casual on-the-street interviews and subtle identity signaling to keep everybody happy. He demonstrates a rare level of subtlety in this space that somehow keeps all of his critics just satisfied enough. Part 4. I don't know if he's Chinese or not. Okay, hot take. The main takeaway from this video is not whether Jensen Huang is Chinese or not. But maybe you figured that out already? Because answering that question is super complicated and I've never actually met the guy, so I can't ask him myself. The real takeaway here, for me at least, is that Taiwanese identity has been politicized in problematic ways. Identity is political, but it's also personal, and when people are forced into identity groups that they don't identify with, the results can be harmful. Think about it from a different perspective. A person from Scotland can say, "I'm Scottish," without igniting a crisis. Even though Scotland is part of the UK, people recognize this statement as one of cultural identity. A person from Taiwan, however, says, "I'm Taiwanese," and suddenly it's equivalent to declaring independence. This places an unfair burden on Taiwanese people, since they're constantly expected to prove their political ideologies whenever they express their identity. For celebrities and public figures, the stakes are even higher, since one word can be enough to end business deals or careers in China. For CEO Huang, we can see the calculus of someone trying to keep everyone happy. In fact, he's legally required to keep everyone happy in order to fulfill his responsibilities to his shareholders and employees and to maintain market access. So he ends up playing this shape-shifting role: Taiwanese hero in Taipei, loyal Chinese son in Beijing, and neutral tech mogul in DC. On surface level, he is blatantly Chinese, and then the Taiwanese aspects of his identity come out in more subtle ways, used to benefit strategic aspects of his business relations. But at what cost? And for how long can he balance on this identity tightrope? Only time will tell. Okay, that's all for today. As always, please remember to like this video, subscribe for more, and comment to let me know your thoughts on Taiwanese identity or which video topics you'd like to see next. Thanks for watching all the way to the end, and I hope you have a Bing Chillin' day.
早上好，中国！现在我有冰淇淋，我很喜欢冰淇淋。
Bye bye.